Hello there, it's Pete here again. It's another vlog and it's Tim Holtz Christmas. Now, today we're going to be making this card. And I did this at the weekend. I was actually doing some TV shows. And this card, of all the ones I made, had the best, most tangible reaction. Because when you're doing TV, one of the great things about it is you can see the orders coming in. So you know that when you do a demonstration, you know when it has real-time impact. And you know what? I did cards which were, we had lots of technique, lots of inking, acrylics, some really clever stuff. But this one, it's just about shape, it's about form, it's about a beautiful monochromatic color palette. And this one, of all the cards, all the projects that I did, this one had the highest impact, so I want to share it with you today. Now, when it comes to cardstock, this is all Sizzix cardstock. These two colors here are from our basic cardstock range. Then these two are from Muted, the black and the white are from Festive. So between those three sets, we've got it all covered. Most of these are quite muted in truth, but we've got the freshness of this lovely blue here as well. So I've pre-cut most of the things that we're going to use today, but this is where it is. And sometimes building up a simple color palette before you even start choosing your colors makes all the difference. So let's die cut, because we're going to die cut Santa's sleigh. Now this is one from Tim's Christmas collection, and we're using three different die sets. We're using the wonderful sleigh, we're using some little stars, and of course this one comes with the rooftop as well. We're using some stars from the Forest Shadow set, which is another from Tim's Christmas collection, and of course we're using the moons, which is a set called Moonlight, and that comes from Tim's Halloween collection, but he designed it very much with both Halloween and Christmas in mind. So just switch up your colors and we'll pop that into the machine like so. So there we have it. One of the great things about the switch, and I'm using the Tim Holtz switch today, of course, the black and silver one. One of the great things about it is, and people might overlook this, but you can take the plates out and you can pop them on top of the machine and work with them there. You can't do that with some of the machines. So there we are, perfect cut as one would expect. So that's good to go. Now I'm just going to put my switch to one side for a second, close it up, and bring these into the center. So we'll just pop these shapes out. Wonderful, delicate shapes these as well. Classic Tim Holtz silhouettes. He does do a really cool silhouette. So there we are. Pop all those bits out. And then you have to be very careful, of course, when you've got something as delicate as this, when you're popping the shape out, make sure that you go along systematically, one at a time, and pop these out, because what can happen on occasion, and it's not a problem with our dies, it's a problem with die cutting in general, is that if you're too eager or too hasty, these can actually tear. And we don't want that to happen, because they are super delicate. Another thing that can happen, if you don't pop them out carefully and systematically, they can actually distort. But as you can see there, we've got perfect cut Santa and reindeer. So here's all my bits and pieces ready to go. You'll see I've pre-cut two of the moons. Now the Moonlight set, it comes with, obviously there's the base and the detail part, and there's also a smaller moon as well, so it allows you to change up the scale. And there's a lot of bats. Obviously Christmas time, you don't really want bats in the background, but you know, if you are going for a Halloween vibe, then absolutely perfect. So we'll pop those to one side. as well. And I want to talk about these rooftops because it's a very, very clever die, and the way that it works when you put it together is extraordinary. The sense of depth and shadow is magnificent. So check out these lines in the die. Those are embossing lines, so that will leave an embossed impression on my die cut. And then when I take the next layer, and they're all carefully numbered as well, so you know which is which. So this one also has embossed lines, but because I've got those, it tells me exactly where it needs to go. So let's just bring in a little bit of PVA glue. You don't need to go crazy with this. There we are. Now normally I've got a little glass tray which I like to apply my glue to, but I thought it was plastic, and my good friend James, who's sitting just to my left, operating the camera and editing these wonderful videos, I questioned whether it was actually plastic or not, and he said, I think it's glass. And as the words came out of his mouth, I dropped it onto the table deliberately to prove that it was plastic, and it shattered into a million pieces, which I've hoovered up, I hesitate to add. So today we're applying glue direct to the die cuts, which is no bad thing. So there we go. Now, see how on the third layer, see how it starts to tell the story of a strong light source flitting across the rooftops and casting the chimney breast in shadow. So I'll take a bit more glue here. And it's very liberating when you're not playing around with techniques, when you're not playing around with pastes or glue or acrylics or inks, and you've just got that going on. It's lovely to be able to choose a simple, clean color palette to tell the story. But it's a challenge, and I think some of us sometimes we will hide behind those techniques. We will hide behind all the color and product and paste and what have you. And sometimes you just need to let the gorgeous dies tell the story for you. Here we are. This is also part of this set, the lovely snow capping the rooftop, and of course the chimney breast. Here we are. Isn't that magical? That is fantastic. I love that. Just that. It gives me so much joy just putting that together. Just creating that like that. Let's take some of these dies out to one side, and I'll put my moon together now, because when we combine the moon with the rooftop, it kind of, I mean, the rooftop looks spectacular as it is anyway, but when we put the two together like that, it all sort of makes sense, because the moon is now casting the light, and it makes far more sense when we see them. Now you see, I had this in the right place before. I did. Let's get, there you go, perfection. That's one of the cool things. That's a very, 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 very Tim Holtz kind of thing to do. Then is it's not circular. It's imperfect. It's kind of elliptical, and that makes the design really pop out. If it was just a simple circle, yeah, great, whatever. But no, we've gone for an imperfect circle. Now let's take my base card, because I've already printed the sentiment across the bottom there. 'Twas the night before Christmas, which seemed to me to be the perfect sentiment for this die set. Let's take a few 3D foam pads and pop those there, because having this little bit of dimension really, really makes a big difference. So we'll pop that sort of parallel with the printed sentiment. Interestingly, I printed this using my computer. The font, and people often ask this, the font is called Stereo. It's a free downloadable font. So if you want to use that yourself, you're more than welcome. Now, let's take this moon. Let's see. I want to put it about there. See what I mean? See what I mean about, even though this is just flat cardstock die cut, you're not going to tell me that that moon isn't casting that shadow. Come on. I mean, really? It's a wonderful effect. It's a wonderful effect. I'm not taking any credit for it. The credit is all Mr. Holtz. But now I'm going to apply a little bit of glue to the back around the curve of the sleigh there and Santa's hands, because we want to attach these wonderful reindeer. And you know what? We've got 4 reindeer here. But why stop at 4? Add, die cut another one. You know, obviously, with the scale we're working with this card, they're not going to fit on the edge of the card, unless you want to get really super dramatic and have it flying off the end. I'm going to superimpose. So these reindeers, they are individual, and I'm going to pop one on top of the other. Again, that sense of dimension coming through. A little bit of light and shadow, doing what it does so well. And then we'll pop this one down here. Perfect. Yeah. Right, now it's time to attach the reindeer to the card. And again, I'm going to employ a few 3D foam pads. You don't need to go crazy with these. Just 3 will suffice. And peel the backing off. And onto the card now. The card looks great as it is, like that, but suddenly you pop Santa in place, and oh my word, look at that. So we have, in fact, we have got this. I love the drama of that. With it just overhanging the card, obviously you need to make sure your envelope accommodates that. But with it hanging over the end, it gives it a deeper sense of animation, as if it really is flying out of the picture. So last but not least, let's take, I'm actually taking my 3D pads, I'm going to apply a bit of glue to this non-stick area here. Because we're taking the stars now, and these stars, they, as I said, the forest shadows, so I've cut 2 sets with this lovely die. And you might see that in a set and think, yeah, okay, but you know what, the difference it makes is extraordinary. And now, I'm going to be very careful here that I'm not doing too much. You just need enough to get that balance. And then once you've got it, just kind of leave it. Now, you know what? Some of you might be thinking, well, that's it. That's all you need. And that's fine. That's fine. It is subjective. You know, it's up to the individual. But I'm going to do a couple more. Maybe bring some of the smaller ones in as well. So I'm going to want one by there. As I said, there's no right or wrong. It's all our own little version of perfection. There we are. That's it. I'm going to stop at 6 stars. I think that's enough. Actually, I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to say, James, do you think we need another star there? What do you think? Yep, that's good. It gets the thumbs up. That's good enough for me. I trust my colleague. Let's have a look. Now, you see, another thing about this is we talk about technique, and we talk about, and we look at sometimes some of the wonderful things that Tim's makers create, and we look at the techniques that they are incredible. But sometimes, let's just strip it back. Let's just look at because the great dyes, and just when you marry that up with great cardstock and you get that balance of color. I'm going to bring in one more, actually, because we talked about how you can use 4 of the reindeer, so double up, sorry, not 4, 8 rather. If you wanted, you could add a 9th, that could be Rudolph, and you could use one of those little red sort of adhesive berries for his nose as well. This little font, that is from the wonderful colorized Santa that is in Tim's Christmas collection. Gorgeous font. The forest shadow set, those trees, you can see they're in the background. It's the same tone as the roof, but that means that they're sort of dropping back. So they're not, and you have to be careful when you're working with very detailed dyes like these, like that, like this. You have to get that contrast. You have to work hard to ensure that they're not fighting with each other. But this is actually going to be my daughter's Christmas Eve box, and I sort of regret mentioning that now, just in case she happens to watch this. Here you go. So there's one more. Santa stop here, again using that wonderful font. The background is the wood grain 3D embossing folder, again from Tim's Christmas collection. And the sleigh and the reindeer, you'll see I've just outlined those with a little bit of gold luster wax. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous, well, they're all gorgeous sets, all of these, and you see how well they work together. Kudos to Mr. Holtz for actually figuring that out for us. So there you go. So there we are. Really, really cool card. But it's because it's a really cool die set, that's what it is. And you can see how well the forest shadows, the reindeer sleigh, the moonlight set, and even the alphabet, you know, you can see how well they all work together. So I implore you to go back and check out Tim's Christmas release this year. It is absolutely spectacular. And as I always say, a lot of what Tim's released this year, he's thinking about last year and the year before as well. He's thinking about what is going to work with some of his older releases. He's also thinking about what's going to work with future releases. He really does think it through, which makes my life easier, which makes your life easier as well. So to get more information about the dies, go to sizzix.co.uk or sizzix.com, depending where you are. But go to Tim Holtz's website as well. That's timholtz.com. See what Tim says about these dies. See some of the wonderful things his makers have created using them as well. They really are the gift that keeps on giving, which is perfect at this time of year, isn't it? So thank you very much for joining me. I've been Pete, and I'll see you again soon.